Hello, everyone. My name is Trish McCabe. Welcome to Conversations from the School of Hard Knocks. Today, I have my guest here to join me again, which is so exciting to complete her notes and her work that she's done on the topic of loneliness. We've had several segments, and this is our next one that we would like to discuss today. And so I'm going to be going off of your notes today. Anyways, I didn't introduce her name, Jamie.
Great to be
First,
back again. Have a good
first,
conversation.
um, this is what happens when I don't do it for a while. I get rusty. Um, yeah, anyways, Jamie Lang, by the way. Um, and so today we're going off your notes. So I'm just going to mention the headline and then I'll let you take it from there.
Okay.
The headline under the topic of loneliness is external work, relationships with others. Do you want me to read the opening line you have here under that?
If you feel like you would contribute, or we can just start talking. Either way works.
Here's what you put,
Okay.
just opening it up. Goal is not to stay in the internal, but to foster true connective relationships externally as well. And then what you have as a subtopic is compatibility. And I can read what you want, or if you have something you want to start off with, I'll just let you
We,
lead the way.
we can start with that. That's actually, I'm glad we kind of talked about those. So, the reason I started off with the idea of the goal being to bring the internal into the, or like to bring the connection into the external, is because when we're talking about the topic of loneliness, one of the reasons that this conversation has gone on through so many sessions is that you're not just doing internal work or external work, you're kind of doing both. And so in a lot of like the spiritual communities and the self-help group, we focus a lot on the internal. And I think it makes sense that we do that because the internal is what we have the most control of, you know? It's not that it's necessarily going to create the most lasting change all the time, but it's the thing that you can change within yourself and work on, and you can do it. When you go out to the external, there's other factors that get taken into consideration, like the people and the situations and the things that you're coming up against. But the thing with loneliness that makes it really hard for people that struggle with this is that you can do all kinds of work in the internal, but if you never bring it out and connect with someone externally, then you still have that feeling of being isolated and alone. And what you're craving is a connection with someone outside of you, which takes it beyond that feeling of safety and control and into the world. And so in our previous sessions, we are talking about a lot about the internal work. And I like to start there because I like the analogy of like a seed, and the seed, you know, like it's underground and it grows the roots before it starts growing the stem. And you get like the stronger foundation of the energy that you providing. You have a better sense of who you are, and it helps you to kind of transition into the external world where you don't have control of what everyone else is going to react, um, how they're going to react to you. But if you have a strong sense of who you are and foundation, it's not like it still hurts if people react in a way that you don't want them to, but you're able to kind of weather it better. And then you're also more likely to find people that are more compatible with you because you're putting out who you are and not like an image or mirage without realizing it. That's bringing in, you know, like when you try too hard to be someone that you want other people to be instead of yourself, you can kind of bring in people that don't necessarily like you for who you are. And then when you actually show yourself, then it can create a whole lot of rejection. So the previous sessions were a lot on the internal work, which is an important foundation. But eventually, the goal is to get to the external, where you form those really deep, lasting connections with other people. And so this is where we're kind of bridging into that category.
I love that. I think it directly relates to being your true self, right? And because when you allow yourself to do that and you do draw people to you, they're drawn to for you, not
Mm-hmm.
some idea that you've put out there, a bravado, so to speak.
Yeah.
And in our society, we do that for safety reasons. We don't feel safe being ourselves, as a lot of times in the past that hasn't been received well. And I think the external part is important in what you said, dealing with if they don't receive it well, um, and how to cope with that. Um, I think I probably just repeated exactly what you said, but I totally identify with it. And I struggle with this one in particular. Um, I'm a deep thinker, um, and I can kind of scare people off sometimes because of that. And that can be very painful. It takes a lot of willingness to be vulnerable, to be who you really are and express how you feel and how you think and your viewpoints when you're engaging with others. And so it can be particularly challenging not to internalize someone's reaction to you. I have a question. What has helped you deal with that when you do express yourself genuinely and it's not necessarily received well?
Oh, it's been a struggle for me. I'll have to tell you, like, I have one of authenticity is probably one of the hardest things that I've ever had to work on and takes the most courage because I am such a people pleaser. It's ridiculous. But like what helped me, I had to do, how do I explain it? What helps me is I'll spend a lot of time like with my thoughts and I'll kind of like logically analyze things to a certain extent. And it kind of sounds cold, but this is like usually how I get myself kind of on track with learning something new if it's difficult. And so I had these relationships that just weren't working out very well. And I felt alone, even around people, even around my friends. And then usually at some point, I'd end up expressing something I'd kept secret and it would destroy the friendship. And I'd kept finding myself in this place of being like desperately lonely and feeling horribly rejected. And I'd be mad at the other people, but I'm like, what am I doing? What's going on? And what I started realizing was how much I would do everything around what I could see that someone else might like or want, to the point where I didn't even know what my own opinion was anymore. And then I started thinking about like the idea of love and what it meant for me to love someone else and what it would mean for someone else to love me. And I realized how impossible it would be to love someone who never let you see them. And then I realized I'd set up all of my
Mm.
relationships in a way that made it impossible. Even if the person really sincerely wanted to connect with me and know me, I made it so that they couldn't because I was so busy hiding behind disguise after disguise after disguise that by the time they jump through all the hoops of all the disguises, they're just like, I don't know what to do with you. I'm frustrated.
Who is this person when you
Yeah. And
do
I was
let
like,
it come
this
out?
is what I'm
Yes.
doing because I'm so scared. And I can be compassionate with myself and understand the fear is real and that I was trying to avoid this pain that I kept feeling. But then I could logically like reason understand that no one can ever love me for me if I'm never brave enough to be me and I'm never
Oh,
giving them the chance. And so that was like the harsh truth that I had to face. And that didn't make it easy. It was still like, this is like years of practice of like, okay,
oh yes.
I'm going to be brave enough to just try and be a little bit more and say something that I like. And at first, I didn't even know what, like, even like little things. Like, you asked me, even now, if you ask me what my favorite movie is, I'm not going to know. But like something that, like, my opinion on something. And I was just like, I'm so used to trying to figure out what I thought other people wanted my opinion to be that I didn't even know what it was. So part of it was when
Wow.
I had to admit my true authentic self, I was like, I don't know. I don't know what I like. But to be brave enough to say that at first and then to deal with the reactions, there was a lot of that self talk of like having to go back and forth. I'm like, I'm going to be someone who's brave enough to live what I say and to let other people in like the way that I would want them to let me in if I was trying to connect with them. But I'm also going to learn to be gentle with myself. And again, it wasn't like a quick, okay, 5 minute, 1 hour session of this. It was like years of practicing and like small steps of, you know, small
Putting
degrees of
yourself out there,
yeah, and feeling
revealing your true feelings about
yeah, exactly.
opinions,
And I
viewpoints.
yeah,
Hmm.
and sometimes I lost some friendships. Sometimes there are things that kind of exploded out of me in a way where I was like, oh my gosh, I didn't know I was suppressing that. And that did not come out well. And it just destroyed this relationship. And there was a lot of those painful moments. And then I had to do a lot of that. But I'm going to look at the bigger goal. And the bigger goal is that I really want to bridge this gap and I'm learning. And if I beat myself up, that's going to set me back. So again, then you go back to that internal work of shoring yourself back up, being the friend that you need for yourself. And then as I'm ready, I go out and I try again. And over
Yes.
time, it creates a pattern where the new relationships that I started to form became more and more stable because even like the romantic relationship I'm in now, I met my partner and I told her I struggle with this. I have a tendency to do like if I know that you want to do something, even if I don't want to, I'll have a hard time saying no. And that's honestly how I am. And I like no,
And
that's
you
not
can
on.
feel guilty if you say
Yeah,
no.
and I feel, yeah, and I'm like,
Mhm.
I'm going to feel good. I have a hard time saying no, so I'm going to tell you that there are probably things that I'm going to agree to, and then later on I'm going to be like, I really didn't like that, and I'm going to try not to do that. But I'm just letting you know right now up front, I have a tendency of doing this, and it's something I'm still working on. But because of that,
Mm.
it's not this big surprise when that happens. Like sometimes I'm like, I'll have, she makes a joke because she likes to cook, and so she'd make me like this eggplant thing because she thought I liked eggplants, and I was like, I don't mind them. But after like a year of eating this meal, I was like, I really don't like them that much. And she's like, why didn't you tell me? And I was like, how I told you that there are things that I'm not going to say? But like stuff like that. And that for me, that was part of being authentic, was admitting that I have trouble with this. But
I
now we have a
think,
relationship that,
oh my gosh, I so relate. I just went through
yeah.
something so similar. As I've talked with you, even I'm going through a difficult time in my job, and I had to give myself permission to feel whatever I was feeling in regards to that situation. And so I found myself all day worrying about what he might say, how he might judge me, how he
Mhm.
might view me. Uh, Maybe he might think that I'm lazy and I just don't want to work. I had all these like scenarios in my head. And so I came home. This was like last week, and I sat down and I said, here's what's going on with me. I've spent all day worried about how you're going to receive what I need to say to you in regards to my employment, but I cannot do that. I
Mhm.
cannot hold myself and my truth back for fear you're going to do anything under the sun anyway or whatever. I need to be able to say what I'm going to say to you. And I wanted to open that up for him to know that I do that, that I worry about what he's going to think. And I'm like, I have to honor and be my own self. And then I went ahead and told him my situation, my decision. And he was so respectful because I opened up and explained to him my stuff and how
Yeah.
difficult it was just to have that conversation, how scary it was,
Oh, yeah.
vulnerable and uncomfortable. But how is he going to know who I am and what's going on with my decisions, what's behind my decisions that directly affect us since we live together? So, yeah, it
Yeah.
was a
Like
big relief.
it is like, and I've had a lot of experience like that. And, like it's not like it's always guaranteed the other person's going to receive it well, but there's something very freeing. And a lot of times people might surprise you when you just come and you're like, this is hard for me. But, and then you're just honest. And it's not honest in a way that's like aggressive or rude. It's just honest with like, this is how I'm feeling. This is what I'm afraid of. This is what's going on. This is what I need. And then I think on the other side, if they aren't as receptive as you would hope, then that's where you go back to the internal part of advocating for yourself and reminding yourself that you can't control other people's reactions and that other people's perceptions of you don't define you. And that is a lot of self-talk and self-practice. Like for me, especially the beginning mantras, oh my gosh, I'd have things like that. I'm like, okay, if I say the same, and like immediately I'm like, oh my God, they're going to think some horrible thing about me. And I'm like, I can't control what they think. I cannot control what someone else thinks. I have no right to control that. I can only control what I do and what I, like the choices I make. And I'm going to make them the best I can. And I know that I'm doing the best I can. And that's all I can ask for myself. So whatever they think, they think.
Yes.
But
And
again,
that's
years of
them.
practicing that. Yeah.
Yes, we have to remember we're not them and they're
Mm-hmm.
not us. And that's okay. Like,
Yeah.
I've had differences with my spouse based on my life experiences. And we'll clash, and he'll say, well, that wasn't my experience. Yeah, but it was mine.
Mm-hmm.
I'm responding to what's happening based on what I've been through, not what you've been through.
Yeah.
This hasn't happened to you, it's happened to me.
Mm-hmm.
And this is why I feel the way that I do. I have personal experience with this. And whatever it is, and even if he did have personal experiences, he might derive at a different place than me. And that's what can be particularly challenging in romantic relationships and even friendships, where, okay, that's cool, that's you.
Yeah.
And I'm me. And they're both okay. They're just different. I don't have to be you. I don't have to see it your way always. You can just even agree to disagree or just go, oh, okay, I didn't realize that. But I think the hardest thing is when we're wanting to honor ourselves and they don't relate, that's okay if they don't too.
Yeah.
It's fine. They don't necessarily have to relate. Um, it's like even if they don't, what am I trying to say? That's okay. That's them.
Yeah,
And
like
you're
not
you.
everyone's going to have the same perception. In fact, no one can really have the same exact perception or, like experiences, all of that together as we've got our own unique experience that we've been through life. Even if we had similar circumstances, we have our own mind, we have our own way of seeing it and adapting to it. And I think that, like when we're looking for connection, we're looking for someone who's willing to like see who we are and understand us and like hold that space for us. But that doesn't mean that they're going to lose themselves in it or that they're necessarily going to take on our thing as theirs. It's also we get to hold their view and understand that they're different, and yet we can still be in this connection and understand each other with those differences. And so
And
yeah, like it's
actually
just
create a space to better understand each other.
yeah, we're not like fighting over
Right?
who's right and who's wrong and whose opinion do you have to take, and if you don't take mine then you're not on my side. It's this is where I've
Yes.
come from, this is what I see, this is how I understand things, this is what's important to me, and then they can share the same things, and the connection comes from that sharing, and how even in that sharing it's changing both of us, and yet we're still ourselves, just growing together in a way. So
Yes, and not the comparison thing
yeah,
is
and it's not
so
like
easy to get caught up in. Yeah.
yeah, or the validation of like, well, I'm only right if you agree with me, and then it's like, well, they can hear you, and like you can hear someone and have a different opinion and still respect and connect with and you know communicate and have a relationship with them, but also keep your own opinion. But that requires that ability to hold space and to hold differing
Love
viewpoints.
that. Hold
Yeah.
space. I love that. I think that is so honoring. I really love that. I hear people say that online here and there. Here, I see them say it, and I think that's just so loving and kind. It's a great way to speak, allowing people to be true to themselves, whether you understand it even or not.
Yeah,
You can
because
still right allow that and go, well, I don't have a direct experience with what you're talking about, but I will listen. I will support
yeah,
you.
yeah,
Yeah.
try to understand, and a lot of times that understanding goes so far. Like you
Yes.
don't have to, again, it's not that you have to agree with them, but to be understood by someone, that's such a deep thing already, and to have
Oh,
someone you like it's I feel like that's a lot of what people are looking for. It's not that I need you to agree with everything I say, or I need to agree with everything you say. It's just I just want you to understand where I'm coming from, and I want to be able to understand, and now we see each other, and
oh
because of
my
that we're
gosh.
together.
That is the most loneliest feeling is to be
Oh yeah, when you're
misunderstood, to not
yeah.
be understood when you're really coming from a genuine place and you really mean well, your intention is good and they don't get that.
Oh yeah,
It's
that's
very difficult, very painful for me. That's probably the bane of my existence. I think many people just I'm a very outwardly high energy person. People will take my behavior as aggression, you know, when it's
yeah,
passion, it's and this can be particularly difficult when others don't allow them that freedom to be so open and expressful. They're more reserved and protective, no judgment, that's what they choose, but you can trigger people that aren't comfortable with that when you're
yeah.
that way, and oh, I can be really lonely feeling for sure.
It can. I mean, I think that is one of like that is a really painful place to be when you're trying to do something with the intention of one thing and it gets completely misinterpreted, because that kind of gives you the feedback that you weren't seen and you weren't understood, and then this gesture that you might have been trying to make just didn't come across, and like it's a very kind of painful thing to not have that communication bridged, and to not like have it received the way that you want to, or even understood the way that you wanted it to.
Yes, yes. And I've had to do some internal work on my approach,
Mhm.
that maybe tone it down a little, not beating up on myself, but maybe just, Trish, it's okay to make an adjustment and see what happens.
Yeah,
Try your, see how people are responding if you make a little shift. um yeah, even when you're doing the internal work, it's okay to edit yourself a little bit, not to win approval, but like if your objective is to reach them and your approach is maybe not working, it's okay to make an adjustment so that you can achieve that objective, if that makes any
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah, like I mean, I feel like it can get confusing when you start talking about words and you're like, oh, but if I'm authentic, then I have to say it exactly how I want to. And like not necessarily. I think of
Oh,
communicating with people, not just like in terms of words and stuff, but even like coming down to match their like level of energy or their way of expression. It's kind of like learning their language. And it doesn't make you less authentic if you're speaking to someone in, Spanish
love
or
that.
Japanese or Korean. It's just we communicate the way that we communicate. So if you know that someone isn't going to understand you if you're communicating them in one way, you can switch the way that you communicate and it doesn't make you less of who you are. It just
I
means that you're
love
actually bridging the gap.
this is huge
On
because
YouTube, I
people won't
posted a
think that.
communication workshop and I where I talked about that a
Oh,
little bit.
oh,
But
it's great. Love
yeah,
it. What
like
a great
a lot,
distinction. Yes.
yeah, it's I mean, like for that, I was specifically talking about two different types of communication styles, but I don't think that people always realize that every time you talk to someone, you're kind of forming a new language with them. You've got your own cues. And, again, talking or communicating is a way that you're building that connection. And you don't necessarily build the connection by refusing to understand where the other person is. Like you're both trying to understand each other. So if you have the ability to speak in a way that the other person can understand you, you can still be yourself and be understood. In fact, you'll be understood better if you're speaking the language they understand. But I know that
Yes.
it can get confusing when you're actually trying to be like, well, but these are my
I
authentic
want to
feelings.
express myself in my authentic, bombastic way. I say I can be bombastic, and it can be overwhelming for people. So instead of take being so sensitive about that, I love that. If you tone it down, that doesn't mean you're not being authentic. I love that. The authenticity is the genuineness in wanting to communicate with that person and wanting to make that connection and letting them know where you are, right?
Yeah, and you're expressing your truth. And the thing is, like, after you develop a relationship with them, especially if they know that you're like that and you've already formed that connection, then you can probably start loosening it up and they'll understand you because,
There goes
now they
Trish.
speak your language too. Well,
She's all excited and
like,
look at me. This is me. But it doesn't mean you're trimming back yourself and your self-expression.
you're just,
Everyone's different.
yeah, like you're building that bridge between you and them. And sometimes, you know, like I said, I like the idea of language. I feel like that's the best metaphor. If I'm speaking a
Yes.
different, like if
I
I start
love
speaking
that.
Spanish or Japanese, it doesn't mean I'm not me. It's just I'm speaking a language so someone else can understand me. And at some point, maybe they'll start like picking up on my English, and like so then you learn kind of from your own unique
I
new
love that.
language. But first you have to bridge that gap, or
That's
however that gap is bridged. Otherwise, you don't form it.
that's
So,
fabulous. And this is something that you're doing in your communication workshop or
well,
your
I did it. I think last month I did a communication like
I didn't
webinar
get to
thing.
see it. Darn
It's
it.
on
I
YouTube if
wish
you
I
want to
would
see
have.
it.
I will do that, but I think that's fabulous. Oh my gosh, that's very you should patent it.
I
I
don't
think
think
that's a
I
great
can. I'm sure
idea.
someone has already come with the idea, and I probably just stole it and then forgot
I've
that I stole
never
it.
heard of that. No, I
But
think that's really brilliant. I truly do. I think that's so talk about um what's the word? Honoring what you said, opening the space, creating this space. That's a great, I love that. I'm definitely gonna, I've just been so busy working so many hours and
oh yeah, no,
I know
I
you're doing that too.
it's a hectic time. But yeah, it's just like because we're talking about like, oh, I feel like I just talked about this. So, it's out there if you ever get a chance. It's kind of long, but you know,
That's the cool thing
communication.
with the internet is you can watch things in increments. You can put on pause, go have a dinner break, come back and finish and watch it in increments. In little bite pieces and
Yeah.
whatnot. But this is great. I mean, this is really probably one of my most difficult things that I struggle with, this particular the internal work and having difficulty. relaying where I'm at when I'm communicating with people. I struggle with that and the feelings of loneliness because I'm often misunderstood. And I think what you said about learning that other person's language and adjusting accordingly is great.
And I
I
think
love
that
that.
also, as a note to kind of like, it's also okay to learn who you're safe around and who you're not. Like, you don't have to put your full self out in front of everyone all the time. If they're not going to be someone who's going to receive you, and you can tell, it doesn't make you like less authentic or less spiritual or less anything to say, you know what, I'm going to save this part of me for someone who can receive it.
I love that. The authenticity part is also if you meet someone or you're around someone and you feel like that vibe of they're standoffish, the most authentic thing you can do is honor that.
Yeah. And I
If
mean, like,
they're like this, then leave them
you can
alone.
test it a little bit, but you don't need to throw out like all like I just because struggling with authenticity, I've run into all these different types of walls about like what do you do with these scenarios. But like I think sometimes you can get into the idea of like, okay, being authentic means I'm going to just like bare my soul to everyone I pass. And you don't have to do that. In fact, that's usually painful because not everyone's in a space where they can receive it or they want to receive it or they know how to receive it. And so then they can cause that pain of rejection to return because you're not like when you're connecting with someone, it's both ways. You're picking up on them and they're picking up on you. So you have to be able to put your authentic self out to a certain like, you know, to who you're connecting with. But you're also picking up on what they can receive. And if they're not open to you, you know, like you're going
Why
over there
would
and
you force it? Yeah.
yeah. And then because you just set yourself up to get hurt really badly and you're trying to force them to do something they don't want to do. And that's not a relationship either. So like when you're forming this relationship, this is where the compatibility comes in. You're looking for someone who wants to receive you and that you want to receive them and then you can exchange the information and then you do it honestly and you start putting this strong foundation. But that doesn't mean you have to do that with every single person you come in contact with because not everyone is there.
This is so great. I don't remember where I read it, but it was something like forcing yourself to be vulnerable to gain trust. And it actually does the opposite. It's timing, and like you said, gauging where
Yeah,
you're
like
at with that
you know,
person. Right.
yeah, like
Hmm.
if you had this like little baby, you're not just going to put them in the hands of every stranger that you come in contact with. You
Oh,
you trust
that's
the person
metaphor.
that you yeah, like you with yourself, you also want to protect yourself to a certain you don't want to protect yourself so much that you never have a connection with anyone. But you learn to kind of gauge who am I safe with and how can I judge how safe and how can I lower these different walls and what parts do I only share for the people that I really trust. And I don't
Mm,
think that that has to get caught up in the judgment of I'm not being authentic enough because I feel like that's one of the dangers of, you know,
the authentic part.
yeah, like having those super high values, which I don't think are bad things to pursue, but you can get in the danger of like, well, no, I'm not doing this. I have to do it all the time, all this, no matter how much it, and no, part of
Being
that is,
authentic doesn't mean expose yourself
yeah,
24/7.
yeah,
Right.
it doesn't mean you have to go out there and just like all again, the most vulnerable, the parts that it doesn't mean that that's for everyone. That's for the people that, you know, you trust with that.
And
And
this directly pertains to intuition and vibes. This is the importance as you're navigating who to communicate with, not, and all that. I think intuition is huge.
oh yeah, that can be very important to kind of figure out who's connecting with you and who you're connecting with and with their energy and
Yes,
ability
that's
receptivity.
so important. That's such a big element. Navigating everything now. I really constantly pray for the world to wake up to the power of intuition and honoring our gut knowledge. When we feel something is off, honor that. Why would you want to communicate when you don't, when you feel like, you know, it's off? If
Yeah.
it's off, people, honor that. We've got about 10 minutes here. Perfect.
Okay.
This is great.
I want to throw in a little thing too about the whole authenticity thing because I just thought of it. But like part of that authenticity is if you feel like it's unsafe and you're authentically protecting yourself, then you can do that too. Like, you know, it's
I love
that's
that.
part of like it's not like you're putting on this is who I am at all times. It's you're you know, adjusting to the situation. So if you feel safe, then you feel safe. And if you don't feel safe, then you don't feel safe. You don't have to react the same in all situations. You react based on, you know, what you believe
This
is
is a
right.
big thing about guardedness. I was talking with a really close friend of mine about that. that her family, they just say, well, you're just guarded. Yes. You say that like it's a bad thing. Guardedness is good.
For protecting
When you're
yourself.
people pleasing, that is a thing that you don't, that I didn't do as a people, that I don't do still sometimes. I let my guard down, and for for the people pleasing factor, trying too hard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're like, I want you, I want to connect so badly that I'm going to like, put my guard down so completely. And then again, if that other person is not in a place where they want to receive that or they're able to, it hurts and it doesn't form that connection you want. If anything, you feel further from it. So part of being who you are is in that moment. If you don't feel like putting your guard down, then you don't have to.
I've even had the situations where I come home. I don't know if this happened to you. I'll come home and my spouse will be what I perceive as distant.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll start making up all these things. Oh, it's me, it's da, 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 da. And I catch myself and I go, stop doing that. Leave him alone. You just stay in your own lane. Love yourself. What is it, that you need? And I'll tell myself the things that I need, and I'll just focus on myself. Do you stay in your lane? And it's amazing. And I might have brought this up in a past podcast, but it still blows my mind. Suddenly that person will be like in my lap, and
Yeah.
it's how you can attract people by just being and being okay in silence, even.
Yeah.
Don't
And
read
like,
into anything.
yeah,
Okay.
that is a pure. Well, one of the things that I realized too is because I tend to have a more reserved personality, and sometimes that seems like a bad thing because I've been taught that you should be more friendly and outgoing, and I'm just not. But part of what I've realized is like I want the people who are close to me in my life to be okay with the fact that I sometimes just like to sit quietly next to someone and not talk. I have nothing to say. If I don't have anything that I actually want to say, then most of the time I don't feel like talking. Like I don't, I'm not good at thinking of things just to fill space. But if I want those kind of people who can accept me doing that, then that means that I get to just sit there sometimes and be quiet. And I'm not going to sit there and judge myself and be like, I have to talk, or I'm going to force myself to make small talk when I feel that uncomfortable with it. And so then again, it's as you just do more things that feel natural for you, whatever they happen to be, it also allows the people that are around you to realize, oh, this is who you are. And am I okay
Not
with that?
to
And then,
internalize it. Don't
yeah,
internalize what they're doing and make it about yourself.
yeah. But
Unless
also,
they tell you, right? Let them
yeah, I
tell
mean,
you
if
if
they
it's
tell you
about
that
you,
you're
right?
doing something that's hurting them or that's
Right.
really like causing them problems, then that's a conversation to have, and then it's good that they feel safe enough to bring it up to you so you can talk about it and change things. But I also mean like as you start doing that, then the new people that come to your life are the people that are okay with that. So the people that I have in my life now, they're okay with us just sitting there quietly because that's just how I am. I'm not going to go out of my way. Like, I'm not going to be rude if I have something to say or I don't feel like talking. But it doesn't need to be a thing where you have to live up to some kind of standard. There's a part about just being yourself, like you said, staying in your own lane, doing the things you need to do. Then people naturally start coming around who like that about you because they see who for who you are, and then they're like, oh, I like that. Like so you get the right people around
We
you, and
don't internalize it. Like again, my spouse, he's not a morning person. He's
yeah.
so I honor that. I give him a
Mm-hmm.
space. I'm not like,
Yeah.
well, I'm a morning person. You have to be, you know what I mean? And I used to take it personally and I don't anymore. And no, it has nothing to do with me. He's a person that needs more time in the morning to wake up and get his day going. And um, so I'm trying to give examples identifying what you're saying that I deal with today and that I'm dealing with. And but yeah, so I love this compatibility. Um, there's so much to go over, huh? I mean, I don't want me to drag
We
out
could
all
just
these,
talk forever
have
and
all
ever.
these, podcasts, but I just feel like this, what you're tapped into with loneliness and all these subtopics under loneliness and what perpetuates the feelings of loneliness is so important. This is
It is
really
a lot of people
huge.
struggle with feeling so disconnected and not knowing how to relate and feeling lonely. It's a very common and very painful state to be in. So
I think
it's
this
definitely
was great. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, go ahead. Good.
I think this was great. We're going to be running out of time here, but I will leave it to you. If you want to do another podcast expounding on what we've talked about here or anything else, I'm always, my door is always open. I think the work that you're doing is great. I will definitely watch your communication YouTube because I think the language thing, that's huge. I really love that. I would even love to dig in more on that because I just think that that's profound because I was just talking with someone today about how different everyone is. Everyone does things differently and for different reasons and have had completely different life experiences. There's so many variables that the language thing allows people to work with that truth. I love that. I think it's
Yeah,
really
it's
powerful.
an important part being
Yeah,
able to
very
come
important.
together. Yeah.
Yeah. So we're probably going to run out of time here, but just let me know, folks,
Okay.
this this may get put on hold depending on how much time you have. I know you just got a new job, and I too am working on that, and it takes so much time. And when you come home and you're tired, it's hard to be grounded when you just have so much going on. So I'll leave that up to you, folks. I'm sure we'll be back at some point that works best for you, Jamie. Again, I thank you as always for your time and energy and the work that you're doing. I think it's fabulous. I'm looking forward to seeing how you move forward. And again, just let me know. And folks, if you have any questions, feel free to ask. I didn't say that in the last podcast. Put in the
Oh yeah.
comments any questions. And I know
Yeah,
Jamie would be happy to answer. Yeah.
sure. If we can, yeah. And if the audience wants us to elaborate on something more, I don't mind doing more of these. I don't want to, like you said, drag it on forever and like, okay, this is our new podcast as we're only covering. But if there are things that people want us to elaborate on, or if it's helpful and we want to keep going, I have no problem with it.
Yeah.
I
And
really,
no timeline. I'm all about authenticity and go with the flow. And if it's meant to happen, it'll happen kind of thing. I don't try not to force anything. So that's why I wanted to put that out there. So is anything else you want to say as we close out here
um,
to the audience?
no, I mean, just I guess reach out. I'm going to hope that you'll respond because I don't get all the notifications. I think it gets posted more on your channel. Also, I don't check on the notifications as much, but yeah, and hopefully it's helpful. And like it's a journey. It's not like an overnight. I'm going to work on this, and all of a sudden it's better. It's these are things that take years. So just be gentle with yourself and be proud of yourself for the courage and bravery because it takes a lot to go through these kinds of changes and to make these adjustments and then to reach out externally. So you have a lot to be proud of if you're over here working on these types of things.
I love that. Yes, be proud of yourself. Don't forget every day, every little increment is progress. So definitely. Thank you, everybody. Thank you again, Jamie. And until next
Yeah.
time.
Bye.
Bye bye.